sober. Busy living sober. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is episode 441 with Donna Martson. Hi, Donna. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And I want to say welcome to everybody's here that's here for the first time. I hope you enjoy the show, and please subscribe if you enjoy it and share it with all of your friends. And if you're back, welcome. So I always like to say hi to everybody that's all my listeners that are here. So Donna has a different story, everybody. And I think it's a really important one. And every month to me is like alcohol awareness or addiction awareness. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter what day it is, does it?
Right.
Addiction hits families.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you weren't the addict per se, but you would say if you were reading like the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you would be the family afterward, wouldn't you?
I was the unhealthy helper.
The unhealthy helper. So tell us what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now.
So, I suspected that my son there was something going on at the age of 15, couldn't figure it out. And the older he got, things just started to progress. Like his first arrest was at 18, and I said, "Are you using drugs? What's going on?" He's like, "You're crazy. Never would do that." And it started to escalate. At the age of 20, he admitted that he was addicted. I thought it was Oxycontin. I thought he was orally taking them. I was very naive to this. I later found out in his sobriety that he was an IV heroin user at the age of 17. And so from 20 to 25, my world fell apart, and so did I emotionally. And even though it's been a lot of years, I still get emotional. So please bear with me. Um, and so I when I first found out, basically I went to bed when nobody was looking and got my husband off to work, his brother off to school, and then I just go to bed in the fetal position, creating stories in my head that I didn't know to be true, beating myself up. I must be a lousy mother. It's all my fault. What did I do wrong? Did I love him differently than his brother? It was, pity party after pity party after pity party. And I did that for 6 months. I just couldn't get out of bed. My heart was broken. There was days I thought if I didn't end up in a psych ward, I was going to end up dying of a broken heart. And so I would go from like my bed when I couldn't get out of bed to my living room to my family room. And there was a day I had to go. He was going into an IOP, intensive outpatient program. And I had to go show my face in public. And I was angry. Like, how dare he do this to me? And, because back then I profiled anybody who had a drug or alcohol problem. And so in my mind, how dare he put me in a situation I have to go sit with those people? And when I went to this room and I walked in and I looked around and I saw people that looked like you and me, that could be my family members, that could be my friends. They weren't people from under a bridge, from the other side of the track, so to speak. And I was humbled. I was very humbled. And I realized that night that addiction has no boundaries. It doesn't matter what your social status is, your family status is, or your financial status. It is what it is, and so I went on this journey of how can I save him from himself and his addiction and those damn dealers? How could they do this to my baby boy? And I did a lot wrong, and I made it messy, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so fast forward, at the time I was in real estate and also had a salon. I had been a hairdresser for years. Then this client of mine said, "I want you to read this book." Asking It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. And I tried to read it and it was like, I can't, my mind's not into it. But I had started my spiritual journey prior to this. So she said, well, just open page 34. I think it was 34 or 134. And I did. And there was an emotional scale. And it was 1 to 22. And I was number 22. I was full of despair. I was depressed. I mean, I was a mess. And it slapped me in the face. Like, how did I get so emotionally sick? And that's when I hit my enough. And when I hit my enough, I was able to start to set some boundaries. I was able to start to take care of me. And I was able to start moving forward, reaching out for help. And that's it in a
It is,
nutshell.
well, it is, for one, I'm a mom and I see so many moms, and today with what's going on in our country and what's coming over the border, it is so horrendous.
Yeah.
And when you first were talking about your story and you saw your son at 15, you said at 15 you thought something had changed.
Mm-hmm.
So to the moms that are out there that we think we're crazy, right? You see
Yep.
things and you're like, I'm crazy. I'm totally crazy because he's sitting here telling me nothing's wrong. But I know, because we know our kids,
Yep.
what's going on. What did you see?
I saw him becoming disheveled, just not caring about himself. I saw him become sad.
No, please, please. I wish I could give you a hug.
Yeah. I just saw my gut was something's really wrong and I don't know what it is. So so I'd say to him, like, did somebody touch you? Are you, if they did, we can talk about it. Are you gay? Because if you are, I'm gonna love you anyway. I don't care what's going on. And he'd say, nothing, I'm fine. Just leave me alone.
Mm,
And and I found a journal and he left it open on his bed. So I figured it's fair game, right?
yeah.
And I think he was 17 when I found the journal, but it just, and the lies, the one thing I found that, and I find this a lot with people because I work in the field now too, but they're great convincing liars, right? And they can sell snowballs to Eskimos. It's just, they're that good. And so he would tell me all the stuff. And I don't know, it's because of mother's love. You just want to believe everything that comes out of their mouth and that they are beautiful and perfect and wonderful. That I believed whatever came out of his mouth until I couldn't believe it anymore.
Well, and it's so interesting because you think about it, because they go from these little babies, right, that we're doing everything for. We're completely in charge of everything, right? They can't eat, they can't sit up, we've got to change their diapers, then they're teething. I mean, we just go through all these cycles with them.
Yeah.
And then at 15, did he have anything happen at school? Was he an athlete? Like, were any of those things going on? Had he gotten hurt or anything?
No, we kind of went back and when he was able to be realistic about things, we went back and realized that in sixth grade he was bullied by an older kid. And some of the kids that he was really close to all through elementary school, I gave a ride to one of our neighbors' sons, and the kids considered him a geek. And so the old friends, told my son to tell me, tell your mother to stop giving so and so a ride to school because if she doesn't, then we can't hang around with you anymore. And I was like, I'm not having a bunch of, teen 12, 13, 15-year-olds, whatever, 16-year-olds tell me who I can and cannot be around. And so that's when they stopped hanging around with him and some of the other kids and some of the older kids started to pick on him. And this one kid was pretty bad. And I reported it to the school and they're like, oh, boys will be boys. And and it just escalated. And as he got older, because he was shunned, right, back then by his friends. And then as he got a little older, he wanted to fit in with the cool kids, and they were experimenting. And a lot of people can experiment, but there's some people like my son who can't, because he wakes up this his disease that's laying dormant in him. And then the more he, smoked some cannabis or took a little alcohol or whatever he does, it gets bigger and bigger. And then, he graduated to being an IV heroin and fentanyl user.
And is there alcoholism in your family at all?
Well, I thought my family was perfect. I didn't grow up around drugs or alcohol. I didn't see it in my family. My husband's family is riddled with it, so I blamed him. If I didn't marry you, this wouldn't have happened to my beautiful boy. So there was some anger and resentment there. But since my son, was in and out of treatment, and he's been in recovery for, I think it's 16 years this month. I looked into my family history, and yes, there's alcoholism in my family. Yeah,
But we don't know what we don't know, right? We don't know
exactly.
what we don't know. And when we sit here and we do hear kids, like if somebody told, I'm the same way as you are. Like I look at what's going on right now in New York at these universities with these kids, and I'm like, where are the grown-ups to tell these kids, get out of there, get out of that school? You know what? If you are
Yeah,
going to go protest somewhere else. And
yeah,
this is, let these other people go to school. But
yeah.
you were like the smart mom that said, you're not going to tell my child I am sorry. And you and your husband are still married, correct? And you were married during this time.
44 years. Yep. But with him, he had a different approach. He went to work. He'd leave at 7:30 in the morning and get home at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I was a stay-at-home mom, so everything was on me. And it was easier for him to go to work than deal with it. And I liked it, if I'm being perfectly honest, because he was out of the way and I could do it my way. Because he didn't love him the way I loved him. See, so the night that our son did admit, I went and got my husband, and he came downstairs, and my son's sitting in the chair, and I said, PJ has something he needs to tell you. And so he told his dad, and he had a pack of cigarettes there at the time. And he takes the cigarettes and crumbles them up, and he says, "These are going, and so want you." And he went upstairs and back to bed. And so I looked at my son. Hold on, honey. I went and got the cigarettes out of the trash, and I fixed them a nice. And I said, "Listen, you can stay here. Don't you worry. I'll handle him, and let's do one thing at a time."
Oh my gosh. So your husband was like he was like, I'm not having any of this. I don't want this around me or around my wife or around my other son, because you do have another son. How much younger is he than your older son?
20 months.
20 months. So where's this child when all this fire, like drama, constant's going on right here? What's going on with him?
He's at school playing sports and doing, he's doing things the right way. And so what I learned the hard way is that when we have a child in active addiction, my son became my drug of choice. He became my addiction. So my other child, he's doing well. And I had a lot of guilt when I realized it, that I wasn't giving him the attention that he deserved, because I was so wrapped up in saving and rescuing my oldest child from his addiction and from his son himself and from the dealers. So yeah, it was tough. And, they would fight because, my oldest stole from him. And, what I learned is, the younger kids, they don't have the verbal skills, or they don't know what's going on. They don't understand any of this. And I couldn't explain it to him because I didn't understand it either. I'm just picking up messes and putting out fires. And and I think I'm keeping him alive by paying off his drug dealers and bailing him out of jail and, doing anything possible that I could do to keep him alive. That was my goal, to keep him alive.
So did he ever get arrested when he was in high school?
Once in high school and was a second, no, twice in high school.
So when was the first one? Tell us what that was like. And so if a mom's out there so she doesn't feel so alone, like this, here's your perfect child. He goes off to school. You've dropped him off. You thought, okay, he's got nice clothes. He's dressed well. He's fed. There he goes to school. Hopefully he's done his homework. I'm doing air quotes for anybody who's just listening. And so he goes off and you're like, all right, bye. And what happens?
So yeah, at that point he was driving, so he had his own car, and he was at a Christian private school. We took him out of public because of the bullying and went there, which could be part of the problem because there's more money, right? So this particular day, was this the day?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but what year did you change his schools?
Oh boy, it was in the 90s, mid 90s.
But was he a freshman, a junior, a senior? What year was he?
Oh, he was going to freshman year.
Okay, so it was a normal time to go into a school, right? It wasn't like it was like a lot of kids were going to the same school.
Yeah, he would have been going to public high school or private high school.
So you
And
picked
he
the
went into
private. Okay.
private. Yeah. So the first time, I'm trying to think. Yeah. So the first time he, I guess he was huffing while he was driving this car. And
Your car, by the way, not his car, your car.
no, it was his car. We had, like, I don't want people to think like we had all this money, but we had bought him my husband was in the car business. So we bought him a BMW, a red BMW that's up for his 16th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Right. When I look back and go, oh my God, the
But
things.
you want to give them things that, I mean, and you don't want to beat yourself up over this because if you can do, why wouldn't you do, right? We want to give our kids more than we ever had, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted him to be happy. He was never happy. Just never, nothing ever seemed to make him happy. And so we found this BMW, and I think it was only like $4,000 or 5,000, something like that. And so anyway, as the story goes, he was supposedly huffing, and he was coming down from the street, and instead of hitting the brake, he hit the gas and catapulted the vehicle into an elementary school parking lot. Thank God school was out, and took out a tree. And I'm trying to think, was that his first arrest? All right, I don't even know I think he drove off on that one. Oh no, his first arrest, he was with a kid that's a year or two older at the school. And my gut, I woke up that night, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and my husband goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, the phone's gonna ring. I just feel like the police are gonna call. Something's going on." And he goes, like, "Just go to bed." I'm very intuitive. And so I couldn't, I was just restless. And the next morning I called, oh, this kid calls my house, and he goes, "Is Pete home?" And I said, "Well, he slept over your house last night. He should be at your house. What's going on?" And he said he took a little bit of pushing, but he admitted that they got arrested. And this kid called his parents to bail him out, and my son refused to call us and stayed in jail all night. So we go up to the county jail. It's a holiday. We needed to have $1,500 in cash. And thankfully I think I had like 1,000. We were short 500. The banks are closed. We had to go to my husband's job and ask his boss for a $500 cash advance and explain to him what just happened. That was humiliating.
Oh my gosh.
And
But you'll do whatever. I mean, that's the thing. It's like these are our kids. I want to ask you something. You keep saying that he was never happy. So when he was a baby, what was he like?
he was a happy boy. He started when he got into middle school is when I saw him change. Just nothing. I think there's some people are just internally not happy, and whatever the mechanisms are that are going on internally, I don't know. But he's very jealous of his younger brother. That was an issue. Just I don't know. He just always seemed sad all through middle school. Yeah. And nothing, no matter what you did, it was just never enough. Yeah.
And did you guys go to church or anything? Did you guys have got any form of
Oh,
guidance?
yeah. They were brought up in the Catholic Church. They went to catechism every Saturday, and then, or Sunday mornings. And then they went to a Christian school and they had theology every day.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So yeah. And by the time, it's interesting because when my son was in active addiction, he became an atheist. And I'm like,
Oh,
what's that all about? He goes, well, if there was a God, I wouldn't be going through this. I said,
oh.
well, I'm not sure that it works that way, but okay, if that's what you want to believe, I mean, that's your choice to believe that. And when he his last recovery or inpatient treatment facility, he he wouldn't talk to God. So he would get on his knees and pray to dude because that was easy. I was like, why? And he said, I don't know. I just feels better. I said, okay, whatever floats your boat. I don't care. Just find your pathway to recovery. That's all that matters. And he did,
He
but it was a
eventually
rough
did.
road.
But so, all right, we're gonna go back. So he gets arrested. You guys go, you bail him out. You get the $1,500. Thank God, your husband's boss said, "Here you go. Here's an extra five." So you go and you pick him up, and now, like, what are his repercussions? Like, what did you guys do? Were you like, "Oh my, what did you like? What is going on, honey?"
Well,
Child.
I was a pretty strict parent. My children were accountable for their behavior. He went to hug me and I was like, please don't. I can't hug you. I am so disappointed in your behavior that I just can't right now. I need some time. Because when we got to the jail, there's a dark, you can't see anybody. And he had to pick up so and so. And we don't know if we have anybody by that name. And we need this amount of money. And it was a process that made me feel really awful, really yucky. Because I've never been arrested. And at this time, I was probably in my, I don't know, 50s or so. I had lived a nice life, a clean life, or, not getting into trouble. So it was very unnerving to me and hurtful. And so I made him, I put him on house arrest, wasn't allowed out of the house. And if he did go out, he was with me or his father. He had to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club and do some volunteering there and get everything. I dropped him off and I picked him up. And so when he went to court, the judge said, well, I've never seen a parent like this before that makes him accountable. And that was another time. Sorry, he was going into unlocked vehicles. Oh, no, that was the same one. They were going into unlocked vehicles. That's what it was. And
So, like, breaking and entering into people's cars.
yeah, my son not only ran from the police once, twice that night. So he just kept compounding it. And so anyway, so I, did all that, and the judge was pretty impressed. He said, I've never seen any parents do anything like this. And he was supposed to go in the Air Force. He was leaving for the Air Force in a couple of months. And the prosecutor wouldn't let it go. And he's like, nope. He wanted him in jail. He wanted him serving time. And yeah, it was unnerving. And the judge said to the prosecutor, I'm going to give you the weekend to rethink this. This kid is remorseful. His parents have punished him. There's been consequences. So let's look at the big picture here. And when we went back, he wouldn't He wouldn't go for it. But so the judge did not send my son to jail, and he put him on a year of good behavior. And so we were very fortunate. And then after that, we were able to get his record expunged.
Yes.
Yeah. And while that happened, he got arrested in Massachusetts. While this was going on, I'm like, dear God, are you out of your mind? Again, for stealing, he was with a kid that, another whole story. But anyway, so now this is how whacked I was. So he's arrested in Massachusetts, in Quincy, and they're not going to release him because he's a risk, because he lives in a different state. Now, the other kid is from Massachusetts, so he gets released. And so I said to the police officer, because he goes, your son seems like a really nice kid. I'm really surprised that he's here. And I said, he really is. I said, but I'm a little concerned that I can't get to him. I can't see him. I just need you to know he doesn't eat. He's picky. He's a picky eater. What are you going to feed him over the weekend? He goes, Mrs. Marston, we're probably going to go to McDonald's and get a cheeseburger and some fries. And I said, oh, you can't. He doesn't eat hamburger. And he goes, well, I bet you after a couple of days in jail, he probably will. And I said, but I don't think you understand. He goes, no, Mrs. Marston, I don't think you understand.
Oh my gosh. Now, wait a minute. What happened with the Air Force? I mean, he was all ready to go. Did they not let him go because he had been arrested?
Yeah, he ended up not going. Well, not because of that, but because he was diagnosed with ADHD in middle school, and he was on Ritalin for 6 months. And because of that, the Air Force wouldn't take him.
You're kidding me. I had no idea.
Yeah, they wouldn't take him. I mean, I fought it. But, thank God he didn't go. Here this kid is a mess emotionally. I have no clue what's going on. Can you imagine sending him into the military? And I mean, the Air Force would have been maybe a little bit easier on him, but to boot camp and whatnot, and good things. I don't know. Sometimes there's a song, right? Thank the Lord for unanswered prayers.
I mean, it's so crazy because you're like the ideal parent. I mean, I don't want to say you're Betty Crocker, but because I don't know about your cooking skills, but let's face it. I mean, you're doing everything for him. The judge says to you, oh my gosh, you're the perfect mother. And when he got arrested in Massachusetts, what was his excuse?
Well, he didn't have really an excuse. And I'll tell you, it's unnerving when you see your child shackled from the ankles and his hands all to his waist. And they had him in an orange jumpsuit. And that was awful. That was awful.
Now, was your husband with you?
No, he didn't take the time off from work. My older brother went with me. Yeah.
So how was your husband during all of this? Was he he was just like, this kid disgusts me kind of thing?
He just, didn't say a whole lot and just went to work. And, I wanted him out of the way because, he believed in tough love and I believed in unconditional love. And so him just going to work and getting out of the way made it easy for me. Right? Because in my book, he didn't understand anything. Don't worry about it. I have it under control.
So, and I mean, your marriage is still intact today, 44 years later. And so it weathered all that. How did that happen? Like, there's probably people out there like, I want to kill my husband. And you're like, so happy he's leaving. And so many women leave their husbands. I mean, I'm sure in your line of work, you see it all the time. I mean, how many divorces happen because of these kids, but yours stayed intact. What do you say was your recipe for success?
Well, him. Because he's a happy-go-lucky guy. In my mind, like, this marriage is over. You don't love him the way I do. So just go to work and leave us alone. you know, but we always did our date night. We always did our date night from the time I think our youngest was 10. We made sure that every Saturday night we always went on a date. And even through this, as much as irritated I was with him, we went on a date on Saturday nights.
And would you talk about your son or would you just talk about other things? Did you just like, did you just go into wife mode and be like, all right, I cannot worry about my son right now. I'm just going to go be his wife and be his friend?
I think we went out with other people, so there was always a distraction. I didn't
Yeah.
just, there was other friends, we'd go out with two or three couples. And so there was other people to talk to.
So your marriage kept going. So
It
then,
kept going.
okay, so he gets arrested for the second time. And are you like, okay, now you need to go to treatment, my friend?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. I give him an ultimatum. You have to go to treatment or you're gonna have to leave. But I always moved the finish line.
Mm. Mm.
So, if he didn't make it quite to it, I backed it up a little bit so he could do it. So I taught him to disrespect me by
Mm.
not following through with what I thought were healthy boundaries. But here's what I learned. Just like when my son hit his enough, he found his pathway to recovery. When I hit my enough, I found my pathway to setting boundaries and following through with them and learning to love him at a different capacity without having, I was able. So he was like, when our children are in active addiction, it's like their disease is the puppet master. And everything's attached, all the strings are attached to our hearts, and they tug at our heartstrings, right? You're a rotten mother. If you bought me designer clothes in sixth grade, I wouldn't have been bullied. If you did this, if you did that, all that stuff, it just wounds you, wounds you, wounds you. But he's always tugging. Those strings are always tugging. And eventually I cut him. I had to cut the strings.
Now, at what point was that? Because so many people out there, okay, so now he's been arrested twice and he doesn't go to treatment after the second time. So what finally got him to go to treatment?
Well, he started to go to treatment. He was in and out of treatment for years. This last time we had a really bad fight. So this is how sick I was. I went out and spent, I think, a couple of $1,000, put it on a credit card, and I bought a low-level light therapy thing. And because I found out in Europe and in Canada, they use red light therapy to help people with addiction to stop the cravings, but they also use it to quit smoking. So I told my husband I'm going to start a quit smoking business so I could get this machine and get my hands on that money. And I bought it. And so when he would, it would help him. It would help the cravings and whatnot. So there was one day he was really antsy. And I said, let me give you a treatment. And so as I was giving him a treatment, his phone rang. And I went to grab it because my gut told me this is a drug deal. And I grabbed it because I'm paying for that. And he grabbed it and we got into it. And he took me and threw me across the room. My son would never typically do that, but that's the disease. That's not my beautiful boy. And so I said, you need to leave and you never come back. You say ugly stuff in the heat of the moment. And he left. And of course, then I get in my car and I'm looking to see if I can find him. And it was 8 hours later or 6 hours later. I don't know. It was hours later. I got in touch with his girlfriend and she said, he's with me. And I said, okay, I'm going to be dropping him off. And so this was right before we go out on our date, my husband and I. And he comes in because I'm hugging him and I love you. And oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Why don't you come out to dinner with daddy and I? And he said, okay. So I went upstairs and my husband had just gotten home from work and he's getting changed. And I said, PJ's home and he's going to come to dinner with us. He goes, no, he isn't. Excuse me? And he said, no, he isn't. He said, I'm not sitting across the table from him and he's high. Not going to happen. And he goes, and you need to make some changes. It's me or him. I'm not doing this anymore. That's what I did. And I'm walking down the stairs in tears, thinking all these awful names in my head. But when I got there, I said to PJ, I said, here's a number. I'd been on the phone all day looking for treatment for him. Here's a number. They have a bed. And Daddy just gave me a choice. It's me or you or him. And as much as I love you, you're not healthy. And I'm unhealthy. And I can't do this anymore. And I said, I hope you get help.
Oh my gosh, Donna.
And we went out to dinner. Like nothing, you know. And he called me like 3 hours later. He goes, Mom, I'm at the hospital. I'm getting the medications that I need to go to treatment, and I'm going to go tomorrow. I called and I'm all set. And I said, okay. Now, this is the night before Mother's Day. And on Mother's Day, I found out 8 years later that on Mother's Day, I would have, but by the grace of God, I didn't find my son dead. He tried to commit suicide that night and he failed. And so he had a note, and I would have found him dead on Mother's Day. And when he woke up, he hid the note and he felt that it probably meant he should go to treatment. And he went to treatment and he's been in recovery ever since.
Oh my gosh. What a story. I mean, how much it took for your husband to say that. It sounded like he was kind of like, for a long time, just like, all right, she's doing her thing. She's got her little project. She's buying these $1,000 machines, which he knew. I'm sure he knew you were
Oh,
not
yeah.
doing business. He was like, she's not starting this business. And I'm just going to fall for everything. But finally, he said, I'm done.
Yeah. And my husband is the nicest, sweetest man. And he's so patient and so loving and kind. For him to do that took a lot. He hit his enough because he was tired of seeing me so sick.
And what about your other little guy? Where was he, this little guy? The little guy who was like your straight A student, you're like stud muffin. It's like, no,
He
how
was just living his life and being good and going to school, and he was big into sports, and his friends, I knew all the parents, so you know I knew he was good. He had, you know, he had a good core of friends, and he just went about living his life, and he stayed away from his brother. He wanted nothing to do with his brother.
So
He
that
just, I mean,
night, where was he? Where was he that night? In the night before Mother's Day?
he wasn't home. He might have been at a friend's. Yeah, he wasn't here.
Wow. Wow. And back then, I mean, fentanyl, and I have mascara if you guys are watching. If you're watching, I have mascara falling down my face. Um, when he went to treatment, I mean, fentanyl was not in everything like it is today, was it?
No, and you know, interesting that you said that, because I had said to him when everybody was overdosing a few years ago, I said, "Oh my God, I am so glad fentanyl wasn't around when you were active." And he goes, "Oh, I loved fentanyl." I was like, "Oh my God." Yeah, I didn't know. You know, I just didn't know. Why would I know? How would I know?
So 16 years ago, he said, finally, I give up. I'm done. I'm going to go get better. And he did it. And did he do 12 step?
Yes. So when he went to treatment that day, that was a long ride to Keene, New Hampshire. And he was going to get me off his back. That's what he typically did. He'd go the 28 days and then come home, and it would take me a few months to figure out he was back. But this time, when he was there, the first 2 weeks, he said he was just there to get me off his back. And then one day he found the big book sitting on a table and he opened it up. And it interested him. And then one night, he I had a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and he took that, and it had a movie that went with it, and he loved it. And so he started reading that. And so he started writing positive affirmations at night. And then in the morning, he put his mattress on the floor so he could roll right to his knees and start with a prayer. And he said one night he decided to look in the mirror and talk to Peter, who was addicted to drugs, and his new self. And he said, Mom, you didn't tell me the conversation. I didn't ask because it's not my business. He said, when I met up with him again, he said, I felt a negative energy leave my body that night, and I knew I was going to be okay.
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Yeah, I mean, to me, was his spiritual awakening. And so he went about his recovery, and I think 3 years into his recovery, he decided to do the steps, and he did the step work, and he pays it forward, and he went out on commitments, and just has done a fabulous turnaround, and he's amazing. He started a business, and he taught his brother, and now they own a multi-million-dollar business together. This kid couldn't even have a checking account in the state of New Hampshire, and he just bought a 23-acre farm with his wife, and he just had their third baby, and he's living a great life. He's amazing. My son is a miracle.
And your other son, he has kids too, right?
No, my other son's not married, never been married, and he's adorable.
So any girls out there, by the way, there's a single boy in New Hampshire that might need a girlfriend. And I wanted to say, so your journey. So what did you do at this point? He's finally, your project's getting better now.
Yeah.
God has him.
Yeah.
And what happens to Donna?
At that point, I had already started going to Codependence Anonymous, and that I loved it. And then I was trying to knock on doors, trying to get help in the state of New Hampshire, and I was invited to go on a recovery mission. They sent me up to Knoll Farm in Vermont, and I don't camp, and I had to live in a tent for a week in the woods, and I'm afraid of the woods. I had to really come out of my comfort zone. And we had to go up a mountain every day and go to this yurt, and we meditated, and everybody made a commitment of what they were bringing back to our state. And I made a commitment that when I come back, I'm going to open up family support, because there was nothing for me. This is in the late 90s. He got sober in 2008. So there wasn't much. You didn't really talk about it. There was such stigma. And so I founded Family Sharing Without Shame. From that time, 2 years before my son found his recovery, I had been working a spiritual pathway. I had been doing a ton of healing, and I had been advocating and just not looking to get into this world at all. I was also a real estate broker, and it just manifested it. And I ended up being the face and voice for the state of New Hampshire on a huge campaign many years ago called Anyone, Anytime. And so when I came back and said, this is what I'm doing, I had probably the highest numbers of attendance. I ended up having 2 locations where I offered Family Sharing Without Shame. And it evolved into this business that I have now called Sharing Without Shame. And I do coaching for parents who were where I was. My goal is, if I can help somebody not go through as much pain. By the time I hit my enough, I was financially and emotionally depleted. And I don't want anyone to have to go through that, because it doesn't feel good. And it's so unhealthy. So my goal is really to pay it forward. I try to help people out and, teach them what I know, so that they can move forward, learning how to have a relationship with their child in active addiction that's not toxic.
And what about Al-Anon? How is Al-Anon today?
I don't know. So Al-Anon, to me, and not to diss it, it didn't work for me. what I didn't like about it is that I wanted answers. My son's not like your kid. My son's not like your husband. So just give me the answers so I can go home and save them. And they kept telling me to come back. And in my mind, I didn't have time to come back. Just give me the answer. So that irritated me. So I moved on, and Codependence Anonymous worked really well for me. It was a bunch of women, and we're all people pleasers, and you know all that stuff.
So it was more solution based rather than, okay, we're going to keep sitting here reiterating the problem. And you're like, I know the problem. That's why I'm here. I would like to have an answer on what I'm supposed to do. So have you devised like some sort of program where people can go like do their own steps, or how do you work it?
So I'll take people through the steps. I went through them the way AA does it. I have a sponsor, and that's how she did it, was the AA way. So that's what she taught me. But um, I'm trying to think who it is. Is it Melody Beattie
Yeah.
has the steps for
Yeah.
families. So I'll take people through that. It's a little bit easier, and I have a journaling class. I mean, I do all kinds of workshops, whatever people need, I do. I'll figure out a way to help them.
Amazing. You're amazing. So tell me, I just want to, I don't know why this question is like looming in my head, but do you think that it's different than it was in 2008? What's going on in our country today and being a parent today? What do you think the differences are?
Oh boy, I think life was a little simpler back then. Yeah, I think back then there was a lot of stigma and a lot of people uneducated. Today, there's a lot of people educated about addiction. I did a blog on the evolution of addiction through the ages. The silent generation, the people that are in their 90s, like you don't make waves, and then the baby boomers, like you can be seen but not heard. And as you get down to this young generation, they're very open about it. And they don't really drink as much. They might use more cannabis than anything. And I just find it's much more acceptable, if that makes sense. The stigma, I don't think it stings as much. I think people are getting educated about it.
Do you know what I found recently? I went to a meeting and there were all, because I live in Delray Beach, so there's, so many rehabs and halfway houses and everything here. And I went to this meeting, it was a women's meeting, and all these young women were talking about how they had lost a friend. Like they'd lost one friend, they've lost two friends, they've lost four friends. I'm sitting here looking at these kids. I'm like, you're 18,
Yeah.
19 years old, maybe 20. Your brain isn't even fully developed.
Right.
And you're talking about losing your friends like that's something so normal. Like
Yeah.
for you and me growing up, we didn't know, unless it was a tragic car accident, right? You didn't really know anybody that died.
That's right. Well, it's interesting because I remember probably about 6 years ago talking to a police officer because, the overdoses were prevalent. And I said, I don't understand it. And he told me, he said, the younger generation wears it like a badge of honor. And like they're really cool because they overdose, but here they are. They survived. And I was like, that's how sick it gets. But yeah. But I think there's a lot more education. There's a lot more resources than there were. There's not enough treatment, I can tell you that. And I think you have to be very careful because I think it's a dangerous slope, where kids go, where you send them. And it, what stinks about it too is, here I'm sending my son off to rehab, and I'd call and say, because my son had surgery, had an abscess on his arm, and I called to see how he was doing. And they said, we don't know if we have anybody by that name. I'm like, listen, I'm paying the bill. What do you mean you don't know? And they said, I'm sorry, we don't have any releases or anything about you. So we don't know. We can't disclose if somebody by that name is here or not.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
awful to us. The first time I sent my son to a detox, The guy opened the door. The door's all black, and we're going to go in and drop him off, and we're going to meet everybody and shake hands and kumbaya. And the guy opens the door, puts his leg across it, and tells my son, "Jump over," and he said goodbye to your parents, and shut the door, and that was it. It's not good.
It's not good. And did you like, I've heard recently that they aren't even teaching 12 step anymore in some of these high-end treatment centers. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't. I know there's some treatment centers in certain states that are brokering children. I know that.
I mean, it's a multi-million dollar business, isn't it? $1 billion business.
$1 billion business,
Billion dollar
yes.
business
And
in
they're
our
paying
country.
kids to leave the facilities to have a reoccurrence, and then so they can get the insurance back going again. I had a mom they sent the treatment facility paid her son $4,000 if he could get his girlfriend to come there for treatment. Now that's what you need to give somebody who's trying to get sober, $4,000, right?
Oh
Cash.
my, oh my gosh. And I heard that today someone told me this young, wonderful woman that I've been talking to on Instagram a ton. She sent me a message and she's heard that somebody had bummed a cigarette at a bar and it was laced with fentanyl.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I went to a thing, what do you call it? Oh, I can't think of the name of it. It begins with a D, DEA or the Department of like drugs and alcohol, something like that. And they had an event for families who lost a child to an overdose. And there were people that their kids were vaping, and there was fentanyl in their vape, and they overdosed and died. There was people there that their kids cannabis. It was in cannabis. And so one of the things, this is really important for people to know. This guy from I want to say it's the DEA.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And he said, your children are victims of fraud. And because what's happening is, a lot of the kids are into like the Xanax and the Adderall and all that stuff, especially the college kids. They buy it online. Well, now you can go on Facebook. You can go on and order it. The dealer will bring it to your house, drop it off. So there was this beautiful girl. She was a valedictorian of her school, and she ordered a Valium online and had a friend with her. And she said, I'm only going to take half just to be safe. And her parents found her dead in the morning. It was all fentanyl. So they're stamping pills that look like Adderall or Xanax or whatever, but it's all fentanyl. They're killing our children. And they were asked, well, but then they lose customers. And they said that doesn't matter because there's always millions more.
What do you say to the parents these days?
I just love them, right? They need a hug. I just breathe, remember to breathe. I would always catch myself holding my breath, and I would have to remember to breathe. And I'm here, I put my hand in yours. So together, we know you no longer have to do what you've been doing all along.
Mm. It's been so awesome having you on the show today. I mean,
Oh,
gosh,
thanks.
thank you so much for everything you're doing,
Thank you.
for
Thank you.
being there for PJ for so long and never giving up on him. I
Mm-mm.
mean, wow, wow. How blessed are you? And if your
Yeah.
mom out there, please reach out to Donna and know that you're not alone. And it's just, oh, I'm sending prayers. We got to change some things in the White House coming this November. I know that's for sure, because I know that this is global terrorism that's coming over and killing our kids. And the
Yeah.
fact that we just opened our borders and said you can bring anything you want in and nobody's doing anything about it, it's just
Scary.
it's so scary. It's
It's very
so
scary.
scary. And people think that this is all okay. And the money that's going on. I mean, we got to change the administration. We got to get out there. We got to vote. We got to change things, you guys, because this is
Yeah.
just, it's scary. It's so scary. Well, again, thank you. You guys, if you want to reach out to Donna, I'm going to have all of her information in the description. So you're going to be able to click her links and be able to get to her directly. And just know that you are not alone, you guys. If you need to reach out to me, I'm Elizabeth at elizabethchance.com, and everything again will be in the description. And I just want any parent out there that please know that you're not alone. You are just not alone. We're sending love to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you again, Donna, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it was my pleasure. And you guys, until next time, keep getting busy, living sober. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.